Here I am with my sidekicks, Samson and the little girl. I hope y'all are well. I'm going to start this video out, I think, with some encouragement. I don't do that enough for you guys, and I should. And I'm sorry for that. And you're probably going to hear several apologies throughout this video. First, I'll briefly explain what it is, because I want to dive right into things, and tell you that you are capable. You are the only one in your way. But when I say that, I don't mean that for material things. We know this is a hard world. We know that we can't always control the circumstances outside of ourselves. Whether we lose a job, end up houseless, build a life with somebody for 20, 25 years only to have it all snatched away from you. And I'm not speaking to any specific gender, skin tone, religious affiliated, political affiliated individual. I'm speaking to you, whoever you are. You are the only one in your way when it comes to your walk through this life and your sovereignty. But above that, you are the only one in your way when it comes to your salvation. There are a lot of us who have been speaking out over the last several years. I am not alone. I am not an anomaly. I thought I was, but I'm not, which is encouraging in a lot of ways. You are loved beyond measure, and you have value that goes beyond what you have in your bank account or lack thereof. It doesn't matter how long or thick or curly your hair is, or how straight and blonde it is. It doesn't matter how much weight you've gained or lost or can lose. It doesn't matter how hard you've worked at that job or how successful you are. You are loved. And you are special, and I can say this to you as a parent, and please understand, little snippets of my personal testimony will have to sneak into this so that people understand how I came to this information and how I came to these illuminations of consciousness. Now, that might be a term some of you are unaware of, but I'll briefly define things like that as I go through this video. Nothing has been more clear to me at this time than how unprecedented these times are, and how much we are at struggle with our own selves, and we end up making idols of ourselves, not even because we love ourselves so much, but we love ourselves in the wrong ways. It does not matter how many pairs of shoes you have or how many closets you have. It doesn't matter how many men or women you have. Because some of you might know already, depending what state you're in, if you're able to even listen to this. It doesn't matter how far you've fallen or how many debaucherous experiences you've participated in. And I'm speaking to certain people here, so I do have to change my language, because the goal is to reach whoever happens to be listening, whatever demographic or box or paradigm you fall into. You are beloved, and it doesn't matter how far you've fallen, and you might know now that that hole inside of you is never going to be filled with anything that you put in there yourself. You have to accept the love that is being given to you, and real love is a choice, and I'll go over that too in a minute. We make a choice to love each other, allegedly, for our lives. And again, I have to go over certain parts of my own testimony because it's kind of triggering and because it's pertinent. But beyond that, beyond me, beyond of this channel and this video, if you learn nothing from me at all, it is that you are the only one standing in your way of having a relationship with the one who made you. Now you can turn this video off and you can scroll away, but you know in your heart that you did not put yourself here. You know this. You know that you didn't just manifest. That's not how any of this works. You never see that. Certain miracles occur, sure. We have forgotten how to judge ourselves, and it is not by our own self. You can't do that. That's circular reasoning. Just like saying love is love. Yeah, but what is it? What is it? What does that mean? That means feeding the one that you know is going to betray you. That means whatever that means. Harvesting the meal, planting the meal, buying the meal, preparing the meal. Standing over it for hours, whispering words of love over it. And I know this because I do it and I've done it. And I don't care if it sounds corny or if nobody believes me, but tomorrow's not promised to me either. And if by chance my grown children decide to ever want to hear anything that I have to say, I want them to see me and not some paper doll image that society, their father, my mother-in-law, my mother, themselves, some paper doll that somebody else puts on top of me. We are more than the masks we wear every day out in society, and you know this. And everyone, almost, can feel that something is very, very wrong. And some might say, you're just jealous. It's just not the Christians' time anymore. I'm not, again, talking to any religion here. Your human nature tells you when something is wrong. Your instincts tell you when something is wrong. Hence the reason for all the pharmaceuticals, and I'm not a doctor, the disclaimers are in the description box. But you are loved, and you're the only one that's standing in your way of your salvation. I picked this image because most of you know I love art. That would be the life I was leading if I was not leading the one I am leading, but I believe everything happens that is meant to happen. This is an ancient vision or painting or depiction, rather, of how they viewed eclipses and certain events. You have some people panicking, several people pointing, and it reminds me, everybody says, oh, that's ritualistic, it's occultish. You need to know art history and stop just listening to YouTubers who just parrot other YouTubers. Dig into symbology and understand that this world is symbols. This is the spiritual realm manifested physically. For us to be here and walk this out and have this experience, simply so that another being could share its love. It did not want to be alone. It wanted to share its love with others. It wanted a family. And I know this because that is my own story on a human level. But you have these people pointing up, and it reminds me of all these old paintings with Christ and John the Baptist and everybody pointing up. Now we know that's where God dwells. That's a big problem too. Is that I have to hear things like, oh, you're Sky Daddy. Sky Daddy. That's the problem. That's the problem with every other religion. With Muslims, and I love you. With true Jewish people, and I love you. I can say that and mean it. That's the problem. Is they think God is some far-off concept that they cannot relate to. He came down here in part to experience all of this with us and walk it out with us. We can never say you don't know how it feels, because he does. Just like our parents know how we felt, and I know how my children are feeling. We don't listen to it at the time and we don't believe it, but it's true. So where did all this start? First, I want to touch base on the Mandela effect. And that was way back in what was it, 2011, that was first like becoming in the public vernacular. But I want to look at something here, because again, they like to use double entendres and play on words. So I want to look at something, because we had found something not too long ago. Now, this is a Buddhist thing, and you see that a lot of people now, even the creators of The Chosen, an alleged Christian show, you've got Mormons working with Catholics, and then the Mormon ones, the directors are in the rainbow community, and they're posting Mandalas quite often. I'm not chastising, by the way. I'm trying to discern what's happening. I love everybody. I don't hate anybody. I have people that I love who are in that community, and it is so heartbreaking to see their delusion. And I know that might be an insulting word, but they think I'm under a delusion believing in God. They've said it to me first. They told me they were persecuting me because I went back to God. And that's a fact, and it bears mentioning for my personal testimony. And that's in another video, I get into that. But mandala, was it ever meant to be mandala or mandala? Simply means circle in Sanskrit. Okay, and what else is a circle? An aurora boreas, the snake eating its own tail. When I say circular reasoning, that's kind of what I'm meaning. You can't just say love is love. That's not how it works. Did you birth yourself? You didn't birth yourself. You can't define a word by that same word. And honestly, it's maddening seeing the insanity just take hold of everybody. And I love you. Like, I'm not here to argue. We're getting to things, but I wanted you to see what some of this meant. It's a symbol of the universe in its ideal form. Now we know that this is a truth that is in this other religion, that there is sacred geometry and math coded into our environment. And we see these patterns play out over and over as if there is a code imprinted, much like computer coding, into our reality. Now, I'm using that as a relation. I'm not saying we're literally in a computer, though at times it does feel that way. I don't know. I've not been lifted above like Enoch. I wish I was. That'd be totally dope with me. I'd be good with it. It says, its creation signifies the transformation of a universe of suffering into one of joy. It can also be used as an aid to meditation, helping the meditator to envision how to achieve the perfect self. There's a lesson in everything, and that's what I'm focusing on now, and that's why the comments are off. They'll be turned on when the video is posted. I have very low tolerance for trolls and giving them my time. People have had enough time to grow up, for real. We have all, and I'm a part of this society, so I'm a part of it, right? Like, I get that. There's also another meaning, and it means right there, in Islam, mandalas are created purely for devotional purposes, and in Celtic paganism, the mandala represents the three worlds of the body, mind, and spirit, a trinity like we have ourselves. We have that trinity. You have a body, a mind, and a spirit. All of those things make up your soul, and I know that that's radical to say. And I know that people don't say things like that. But if our bodies affect our spirits, like most of us understand, what you consume, what you let in your ear gates, eye gates, what gets into your stomach, and what you do with your body greatly affects your frequency. I'll say, for anyone who's watching that's not a Christian. Again, I'm trying to reach people. This isn't about pointing fingers and blaming people. We are all a part of this, and the best thing we can do at this point in time is look within and say, how can I be a better mother, brother, sister, father, uncle, aunt, niece, nephew, daughter, son, neighbor, mother-in-law? So you see that there's a few different things. Now, we had this come into the vernacular around 2011. And I'm not going to give it a lot of attention because most of it is nothing but deception. You have to be smarter than than the tools you're using here. Like, seriously. Rebranding occurs all over, everywhere, all the time. And if you took any classes on marketing, you'd know this. It's very easy, though, for me, because I've been separated from, like, worldly things like work and cable television and even public radio for a long time. Everything I watch and I listen to is curated by me. Like, I pick it. It's purely intuition. That's important to mention here. So, 2011, 2012, the Mandela effect became a big thing. Now, after this came this. Now, I'm going to go through these events in as much chronological order as I can recall them. I have a pretty good memory, and I rely on that, and I do this in real time so that if any synchronicities happen, and also so that you can see the process and that it's very transparent. Okay, so we had this. The Goddard Tunnel opening ceremony. It opened, May 22nd. There's that 22, 1882. So that's a loaded number there. You've got the 88, which represents eternity or time travel. Or at least there being no time, all times happening at the same time kind of thing. And then you've got the 222. So this happened in 2016. We're going to be using the news tab a lot. BBC. If you missed this, you should go back and check it out. Switzerland Tunnel. Now, we know that they are a paganistic society, meaning that they are into the earth gods. I'm not specifically condoning that at this time, because, again, in Dante's Inferno, they end up in a less bad place than some of the false teachers, right? So let's all be humble here and realize we've all got issues, and we're here as men and women, children, whoever, seeking a little clarity. So in 2016, the Switzerland Tunnel, the oddest moments of the opening ceremony. And so this was highly occultic. The whole thing was very bizarre. The presentation, I thought of it, was weird too. Like, some of it was inside the tunnel, some of it was outside the tunnel, and normally for these events, they like to, like, pat each other on the back, and you'll see them at, like, these big galas, and after the fact, you never see it as it's going on. It's always very private. Even sometimes in warehouses and, like, empty like places that you consider to be a slum, these people go and have, like, galas at, right? That you have to, like, buy a plate at, just so they can have that privacy. But it was all very bizarre. In here is, like, just one of the key moments. And a lot, you've got the orange for what? Orange safety. And what was the big thing during the CV when it started? Be safe, stay strong. How do you be safe? Stay at home. What is safe? Home base is safe, right? You're safe in freeze tag when you're at home. Okay? They're not all trying to harm us at this point in time. Some people are trying to mitigate the damage that is done. The meek inherit the earth because they're not out causing a ruckus, basically, and protesting and doing all these things. Because, number one, that doesn't affect us. God is the one above us. If those people want to go insane over laws, not laws, let them. Aside from one, or two maybe, and I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so you have all this stuff going on, right? And as usual, nobody's actually watching the event. They're watching their phone watch the event. It's just... The mediator now, instead of Christ, has turned into the screen. The screen is the image of the beast, and everybody worships it. Even me. Look, I'm sitting here talking on it. But again, we've got to use the technology to our advantage when we can. Now you see them being raised up. Everyone who is in the safety color, right? They're safe and they're getting risen up. And these people, gnashing and grinding of teeth is what I'm considering that to be. And then you have them in, I don't even know what to call this, because it's not even polished enough to be a Calvin Klein ad. It's not dirty enough to have that rugged look. It's just very blah to me, and it's very sad, and it says a lot about the state of humanity as a whole today. Then you have this whole scene Okay, now this was 2016. Everything started getting very... Oh, and this is lovely. They actually mime this woman being assaulted, and that's actually a part of my personal testimony, so I take severe offense to that. And the woman behind her is very, very prego. But this is the woman being debaucherized, the one in white. There's the scarlet one, right? Are you starting to see what a strange place we live in? I mean, if you haven't seen all this, check it out. And are these supposed to be the Christians? And there's the beast, I assume. And so that wraps that up. So that was 2016. Okay, 2017. Then you have 27. Now for this eclipse, NASA is launching rockets into the eclipse. I just, when this happened, balloons, I would swear they talked about blowing up the moon, like seeing what would happen if they sent rockets to the moon, you know, right before the SpaceX car, but I'm not sure about that one. Okay, so they send hundreds of balloons up the last time, and they're going to do it again this time. Now, we've already looked at this, but let's go back here. The project, it's called 2017 Nationwide Eclipse Ballooning Project, NEBP, okay, was an effort led by Montana Space Grant to capture and stream live video footage from within the stratosphere using high-altitude balloons during the eclipse. And we saw this in one of the last videos we went over, okay? They also put bacteria in these balloons. I think this is one of the articles that talk about the bacteria. On board will be Raspberry Pi, is what that thing's called. Now, this is 2017's eclipse. Remember, we're going in chronological order. He said, oh my God, that's like being on Mars for 3 minutes. No, it takes longer than that for a planet to cool. Just no. If that's the truth, then no. If there is a planet, you know, if there are planets out there, oh geez, then they get into all kind of, yeah. Bacteria that will fly to the edge of space is a particular strain called PX, or the initials, and I don't even know how to say this. Panabacillus xerothermodurans, okay? Hold that thought on the space stuff and the CERN. And I want to show you something else. Is it an S, sarcophagus? Yeah, there we go. I'm actually a really good speller, but like I try to just do this quick, you know. This was 2020. Now, I jumped ahead a little bit, but I want you to keep this in the back of your mind, all right? And the BBC, Britain, is really big on releasing this stuff. Pay attention to that, too. It's always important to know where you're getting your information from. Okay, so, blah, 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 blah. Here he had two main roles. One was the opener of the doors of heaven, which meant he was one of the priests who was entitled to open the doors of the shrine and the temple sanctuary containing the cult image of the god. After he died, he was mummified, wrapped in fine linen, and sewn into his plaster and linen mummy case. Okay, so then they get into all this, that. Black goo being used in Egyptian burials, but what is it? And if we find out what it is made from, can we learn more about why the Egyptians used it? Black goo, real quick, let's run the gamut. What else is black goo? It is the oil that we drill and frack into the earth for. It is the blood of the earth, for all intents and purposes. There is a show called The Rig. I think it is on Prime. I think Prime. They haven't had a second season yet, but even going back to movies in the 80s, there are a lot of movies about things going haywire and beasts coming out from the depths when drilling is being done for oil. What else is black that comes from the sea? Ink that is in octopus. And if you look at the whole octopus being itself, the whole story is just wild. It is my belief that some of the ancient ones that lived are part of the marine spirit kingdom, so to speak. It is also my belief that some quote-unquote UFOs come from the deep. I've said this for the last 5 years. I'm glad people are catching on out there. I'm going to keep going. Because, again, this is information you should all be aware of already. But we're looking at a timeline here, very specific, to say, okay, this is all leading up to this, and this is why this is happening, and perhaps we should put the brakes on some of these happenings, okay? What else is black goo? Okay, so I believe the beast will come from the ocean. It even says in one part of scripture that the beast comes from the ocean. And I'll jump somewhere else in a second. What else is black goo? Black ink. Oh, ferrofluid, this alleged thing that some teenager discovered recently. We went over that. It's magnetic. All this other stuff. We can look into that more. What else could black goo be representative of symbolically? Well, watch this. In Ghostbusters 2, pink goo had gathered underneath of the city of New York, and it was a collection of the collective, quote-unquote, bad vibrations, okay? Again, I don't want to hear about this being New Age language. The point is to look at a timeline, reach people, has nothing to do with what affiliation you are. But I will always encourage throughout my videos, this is my testimony of God waking me up and how my mind just suddenly, a light turned on and all of these things correlated for me. And maybe that will do that same thing for somebody who watches this video. So, and this is why I don't watch a lot of other YouTube channels anymore, is because I want to know where my information comes from. And I simply pray and I meditate and I let my intuition guide what I take in. I don't let the media or anybody else frame a story for me. And I even went over framing stories of missing people. It would do you well to watch that again. If you've missed it, it's back in the regular uploads. So the pink goo was a collection of the collective bad vibrations of the New Yorkers. Black goo could said to be the same type of phenomena. It is collecting everybody's bad intentions, bad vibrations. We're bleeding the earth. I know, oh, climate change, all this isn't. I don't think we will, quote unquote, run out of natural resources, but I do think we can deplete an area and we should be rotating certain things and processes. And we have to know that what is oil? It's a fossil fuel. What is a fossil? It is a dead body. Think about that. My personal testimony is going to come into play here too, and I can't avoid it. You have to understand how I came across this information. So that is what black goo could also be. Now there's also a horror arc right now, and it bears telling you real quick about, oh shoot, what was it? Oh no, no. I posted this. When I post stuff, it is specifically so that you guys can watch it. Not all of it all the time. So the Monument Mythos is an analog horror series on YouTube that details a reality where America's monuments have supernatural and scary abilities. They come to life. Now, what do we know about giants? We know giants are a legitimate being. France allegedly gave us this statue, and if you look across the earth, they are everywhere. We have quote-unquote giant stone statues all over the place. Some of them look a little too realistic. And there's a great channel that goes over this in detail about how they believe that some of the fallen ones were turned into stone at the time of the last great flood. that they aren't actually works of art, that they are actual beings, okay? I'm not going to get into that area of things right now. I just wanted you to know that's another way to relate. All of this stuff is connected. It's all correlated. It is all to subliminally hit, like it did with me eventually. It took years. Subliminally bring you to awareness and warn you that the cup is overflowing on Earth at this point in time. We have, especially America, we have taken and we have been greedy, and the root of all evil is money. But what is money? It is greed, right? The greed for what? The lust for power, for money, for more, excess, okay? And again, I'm not trying to preach, but the point is to wake people up. Now, the goal, my hope is that this turns out not to be entirely nothing, but that it's more of a mental thing, and that maybe everyone is brought to that illumination of consciousness when this eclipse takes place. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. I honestly don't know. I know that I've repented, and I know that it took a lot for God to wake me up, so I know if it can happen for me, it can happen for anybody. Okay, so what came next? And I'm just going to, I got to talk just for a minute, so I'm going to give you something else to look at. I thought this was, we'll go to this one. I thought this was really cool. It's from a book called The Book of Miracles, and this is about the beast coming out of the sea, and I think killing the saints. But again, death is just, it's a doorway. And I'm not encouraging anyone to seek it out or anything like that. I'm just saying it's not what we think it is. It's not permanent. Most of you know this in your heart. The fact that we can foresee an afterlife, or we ask what's next, shows that some of us are going someplace else. Okay, so next. Or before the 2017 eclipse, you had the CERN Goddard Tunnel opening. Oh no, we got to go to that real quick. What day did CERN turn on in 2017? Sorry for typos. I operate from a cell phone. I am not an actress. I don't have an agent, blah, blah, blah. I know some people might get sick of hearing that, but sometimes new people do show up, and they need to understand that. So April 29th, May, June, July, August. So 4 weeks, almost to the day, before the eclipse, the LHC was powered on. Okay? Now check this out. So we have the 2017 eclipse, right? We have NASA send up those balloons, right? Everything that's happening now happened already. All these things you're seeing in the news, NASA's doing the same thing for another eclipse. Like, it's all repeating. And for me, it's maddening, because it's been Groundhog Day like every day for 6 years now, and I'm tired, but it's okay. I'm not complaining per se. So this happened. Let me see if I can find it in the news. Oh wait. Okay, so January. I'm looking for a specific date here, but you see, this is not an isolated event when this happens. Is that it? Which one? I can't remember. Secret of SpaceX Zuma launch, they're saying, may have caused that one. June 29th, 2018. A rocket lit up the Florida sky. And people on Reddit, like, are real good about sharing this stuff. Like, it's always in here, and it usually, even if it's deleted, you can still see it, which is really cool. Now, all this stuff happened after the eclipse, okay? I'm looking for a very specific day, because I went to Florida in 2018. like it was evening. July 3rd, no. That's not the right one, but again, you see that it's a pretty common thing these days. And worm, like, that's a big term. Somebody in my personal life, like, that's a part of my testimony too, and I can't even get into it because you won't understand it. I barely understand it now. But there was a lot of talk of this person, yeah, when they die, they're not going anywhere. They were told that's what's going to happen because that's what they asked for if they did a certain thing. And didn't I want to just be like worms in the ground too, or something of that nature? And you'll notice worms, like, is a recurring thing. It comes up, I don't know why, so much. It was actually a spiral. It was a circle. And I've already done a video on this, like an upload, so it's back there. The thing that's relevant, though, is that I was in Florida when this happened. So you have a lot of stuff going on. I think I went to Florida in May. See, that one says May 10th to 18. And I was able to find it, but anyway, that's back there too, 22. There it is again. Okay, and then you had this. Happened as well. Now they're saying it's algae. They said in 2017. Now, this is when I was in Florida. Again, I was in Florida in 2018 and the water turned red. Why am I mentioning that? Because I think all of this stuff played a part in awakening me and my conscience and showing me the condition I was in and how gross I was, basically. So I'm in Florida, right? And this matters. The one night I decided, well, first I was invited to Florida by a neighbor. We run through neighbors like crazy. There was just always people in and out. There still are, no matter where we live. And this woman, I was babysitting her kids, and I always try to be nice to I just never was a mean neighbor person. Now, my husband didn't want me associating with people, but that gets into why I am where I am today. I wasn't allowed to have friends, even if I thought they were a good friend. He didn't think they were a good friend. Like, it just never was allowed. Wasn't allowed to have a relationship with my mom, because every time I talked to my mother, I'd get ideas. You know how it goes. That base mentality. So I get invited to Florida, and this woman, I babysat for her, and then she moved a few streets over, and she comes back the one day. I hadn't seen her for a couple of weeks, and she says, "Are you better now?" And I'm like, we're sitting in my living room, and she's basically interviewing me to babysit her kids again. And I'm like, why are you, like, it's not that big a deal. I don't mind coming to watch them for an hour after, before you get home or whatever. And she said something that made me think, okay, somebody's like watching me, or she's privy to information about my life that she shouldn't have had. Like, there was no reason she would have known I was having a hard time with my husband. We didn't talk like that. We weren't buddy-buddy. We were just, like, cordial, nice neighbors. And I would watch her children, but it wasn't anything over excessive, I guess you'd say. So we go to Florida. And the one night I decided not to stay with her in the hotel, because first it was we were going, we weren't going, we were going, we weren't going. And then when we get there, it's like we're visiting her family, but I'm left like outside just to like chill or whatever. It was very weird in a couple of the places. And then in a couple of the places I was left with all the children while she did God knows what in some other part of the house. It was a very strange visit. Anyways, the one night I decide, she's being weird and I don't want to deal with this, and I'm going to get a room for myself, because she hadn't made it clear. I thought I was there to help her with the children. She, in the end, was saying, like, I owed her for the trip and to babysit for free, so it was just weird. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get my own room tonight. And I was walking around outside having a cigarette. And I met this man. He was on a bus. And just follow me. It doesn't get weird or anything. I mean, it gets weird, but not bad weird. And I think they were from, I don't even know where to say. It might have been Nigeria or Jamaica. They definitely weren't American. And we were talking for a few minutes, and we were smoking together. And he says, "You're my wife," or something. And I'm like, "What?" He says, "My wife died in bus," from what I could recall, a bus like had fell due to a mudslide. And his wife had died. And he's like, "You're her. You're my wife." And right there, I'm like, okay, this is weird. Okay, yeah, nice meeting you. I'll see you later. Florida is also where the Slender Man story starts, and I told you how much I seem to have in common with those young children. I think, much like Freddy Krueger, some of our parents were in organizations that probably they shouldn't have been part of. And the sad thing is those people only marry certain other people because we're Christian or we're Catholic, specifically for this time, so that we could be some type of trophy or tribute, like, here's my personal Jesus type thing, and to abuse us and persecute us. The weeds are really beside the tares. This was all planned in advance. I'll get to that when I get back home from Florida. So I come back home from Florida. Oh, I had this weird experience on the beach. I'm on the beach, and I didn't remember this until I saw an interview with Shia LaBeouf and the guy from The Walking Dead, and he was talking about how he went to the beach, and his sponsor in AA told him, tell the wave to stop, and it wouldn't stop. And for some reason, him talking about that memory brought back my own memory of this strange experience I had when I was on the beach, and I was on the phone. It was the first time I started to experience static interference on a cell phone. Why is that important? Because it continues as a pattern in my life when certain things are happening. I seem to get irritated with something at that time. I don't know if it's electronic, if it's something in the air. I don't know if it's something I caused or something, how humans, we get, much like you have that feeling of people always watching you when there are too many cameras around, it. EMF rays have they do strange things to humans, and magnetic rays. And there are those out there that know this. But there are also literal beings above us that created that stuff. So let's continue. Some of you are like, why are you going on about this? Because my testimony is integral into how I came into this information. Okay, so I come back home from Florida. My whole family's different. Everybody's different. I don't notice it yet, though. Right? Nothing happens. Well, this might have been right before Florida. My son and I were standing on the patio, and we heard something in the sky. First, it sounded like giant wings, like whoosh, 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 almost like a giant helicopter. But we can't see anything because it's very overcast and there are clouds in the sky. And I'm like, son, do you hear that? And he says, yeah. He says, what is it? I say, I don't know. So we stand there and listen a few more minutes, and then it sounds like a garbage truck in the sky. Like, that metal grinding when the arms go down and up to empty, like, the trash bins. Well, it sounds the same way. It's like grinding in the sky, and I'm like, oh my God, it sounds like angels. And I don't know why I said that, because at this time, I hadn't read the book of Enoch yet. I was just starting to watch videos about that. I had just started going to a church down the road, a Christian church. So I was just starting on this journey. And God's the one that told me, the Holy Spirit, go to that church. So I went to that church, and then said, go to this church. So I went to that church. But I hadn't started hopping around yet until all this stuff set off when I came back. So I get back from Florida, and everybody's different. Now, this could be because of personal things in my life, and I know this, and I'm aware of this, right? But I start to notice over time that they're way different. Like what they eat, their mannerisms, their manners, how they talk, words they use, and just overall personality traits. And those are things that don't really change over time. They're ingrained, kind of. It's your essence, your spirit. Okay, so as soon as I got back, my husband asked me via text. It's like a day later. I haven't even unpacked yet, and he's like, and I'm very tired. To me, the trip, like, it was very strange because we got back and her whole bathroom was redone, and she's like, "Look what he did for me while I was away," and I'm like, "Wow, that was fast." The whole trip was very rushed, very fast. It only took us 3 days to get down there, and we spent a night at a hotel. I don't know how it was all possible. It happened. That's all I know. We went to St. Lucie, which is funny because St. Lucie is actually a saint, but Lucci is sometimes like the devil's haha in movies. It's always Lucy in a red dress. It's always the devil or knowledge. You know, it's how far will you go for that forbidden knowledge or whatever. Okay, so continuing on. I have a dream, and this was probably before I went to Florida, but I didn't know it. I'm just starting to remember it. And I think it's a dream, but it's not a dream, and I have actual proof for this. This might have been when I got back from Florida. I don't know, because it was like a month long, a couple of months of a lot of things taking place in my personal life. And again, this is crazy to see it all ripple out into the public, but basically, he says, "Do you want to get a tattoo?" I don't need another tattoo. I don't really want one. Well, it can be your anniversary present. Our anniversary isn't for months yet. Well, he wants to trade music equipment, and I don't really want a tattoo. I don't need a tattoo or something. So basically, the whole thing was a setup. My husband sent this man to the house when he wasn't there. Does that sound like... It just reminds me of Adam in the garden. Like, where was he when Eve was doing what she was doing? Anyways... Meeting this person, I call him Diablo. He was allegedly from LA, allegedly taught my husband how to do ink, tempted us, we fell, and bad things happened. And I think that these bad things only happened to undermine my testimony so nobody would listen to me today. And I've gone over all this in the past. I'm not going to go over it again. You can go back to my featured videos, testimony videos. The important thing here is I have a dream about this. I think it's a dream about somebody putting something in my arm and asking me questions that I don't want to answer, like very personal things. And I remember saying, "Your hands are very cold." And I remember the being saying, "That's because I'm of the fallen." Now remember, I haven't read the book of Enoch yet. I hadn't even really watched any of the videos yet, none of that stuff. I might have just started to watch like Trey Smith. I don't know. Again, I told you there are things showing up on my MapQuest at the same time too, like a nurse who lives down the street, and it's highlighted, like it's all highlighted on the map, and that doesn't happen unless you visit those places. So take that information as you will. This man also told me he was a fallen angel. When nobody else was around, of course, there were no witnesses, but he told me he was a fallen angel. There goes my radio ringing. And he asked if he could come in, and I thought he was high. I'm like, and per my healthcare training, I was always taught that if somebody goes into some delusion, you go with them so that they don't become harmful to you or somebody else. So I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's great. Are you still working for God?" And he kind of laughed. He was like, "Oh, that's cute. Sure, I still work for God." And he said, "Let me in and I can fix all this." And I'm like, "But he already called you. You already, like, I already knew he was coming by on this day. This was way after the first meeting. He was coming to get a guitar." And, he walked in the door, and I don't remember anything. First time, well, one of the only times I have lost time. And every time I have lost time, it is around this family that I married into. It never happened that I'm aware of outside of that. But I'll continue. After that stuff happened, I started having regular experiences, and my everyday life started alerting me to things that were going to be important, things I needed to remember, like the places on the map that was visited, like Asian spas. I don't know why, but and then, you know, I had dreams about us being invaded by China. And so, and China is also a communist country, so please remember that. I happen to believe that America has been very blessed. Knowing these fallen angels, like I think I do, or the ones who call themselves that and pretend they're those things, they like to rename things. America's been very blessed. We've not had a war take place on our land in a very, very long time. I think it's very possible we were the original Israel, and they never told us. USA, the letters USA are inside of Jerusalem for a reason. We have a bunch of Salems all over the place for a reason. So that when this time came, all of the natural Jews who got it in their head to go to Israel, who are being called home, and I explained it like the dinosaurs in the Great Migration movie with Littlefoot. They all just get this instinct to start heading us into the same direction. I think it's to confuse them at the end times. See, because Satan knows that in the end times, his time is over. But we have individuals here who purposely want to provoke God. They want this Armageddon to happen. They want that to take place, okay? So we have friction within each kingdom against itself and against each other. And again, this is why the meek inherit the earth, because you don't really get involved in that stuff. We fight spiritually. We don't fight with weapons of war. Now, men protect their families. I'm not going to disagree with that. Me personally, I know my role, and it's not to act like that or be a part of that as little as possible. So, right after CV started, after the eclipse, after you had the water turning red, the spirals being seen in the sky, the Goddard Tunnel being opened, the black goo on the crypts were being told about, the Pharaoh flu, all that stuff with the black goo. Then what happened more recently, which I think happened sooner than they said. Well, let's look at this. Though discovered late in 2019, it entered the conversation in the U.S. in 2020. But it's very possible she was the restrainer. I know what people say about her. But remember, almost everyone that gets persecuted here is not a bad guy. They're being persecuted for a reason. By this establishment, they're being persecuted because they're good. I mean, look at Christ. And we know that he was good. He didn't fight back. Not at all. He could have fought back. He could have asked his apostles to fight back, but he didn't. At the dinner he served, at the Last Supper, he fed Judas. He washed his feet, even though he knew he was the one who was going to betray him. I bought a car, paid bills, paid off mutual debt, knowing that this man battered me. It is about forgiveness right now. We need to be in a forgiving state of mind. So what day did she die? September 2022. There you have the numbers again. 222. It's a ritual, you see. It would be my bet that whenever CV started, when lockdown started, that's when she passed. And again, families have the right to do as they're going to do with things like this. They don't have to tell any of us. But it was announced on that day for a reason. Which is also my wedding anniversary, I just realized. That's weird. Okay, moving on. And the eclipse happened on my dad's birthday. Like, it just... I don't know what's happening. I'm just overwhelmed by all of it. Okay, so after Florida, after all that, CV, oh, okay. So then we have, jeez. I just want to set this here to admire for its beauty. This whole thing happened, right? And then you had Trump's daughter come out and she was wearing a dress that looked just like this. Over and over and over it happens. Now, when did this happen? This was more recent. But check this out. If I can find it. 2021. This was before the Queen's passing was announced. Look at the number. 22. Do you want to know why they told me this number? Okay, if you've not heard this part of the testimony, I'm going to upload a short about this. I tried to yesterday. I got 0 views. People need to know, though. 22 is the Antichrist number, and I'll show you why. Anyway, it's the hive number. I don't know. His number is allegedly 666, and I think that has to do with a verse in Enoch, a verse in Genesis, and the fact that he's going to be part Nephilim, part human. Much like Jesus Christ was all God and all human at the same time, this being is going to be all human, but all Nephilim in spirit. Okay? I know that sounds radical. It's just the truth. All right. John 2:22. This is why they were throwing that number around where I worked. Oh, we love the number 22. I want to be 22. No, I want to be 22. And honestly, they did it with that sing-song voice. These people are gross. If you watch them, and I don't know any other word to use, I'm sorry. At this point, reprobate status has pretty much settled in on folks because I can tell just by the people of my own household, by the behavior and certain things going on that more of a beastly mindset has taken hold. I don't care if you make fun of me. Then you're one of the people with a problem. I'm a mother who loves her children, and I love their father. You might not see that or agree with it, but I did and I do. I'm just a messed up person, and I was hurt too, and so I wanted that hurt to go away. And I wasn't thinking of anyone else, and I was selfish, and I am sorry, and that's why I do this. But to know that my spouse was doing this behind my back for I don't know how long. I have a picture of him and my son doing that peace sign with the sing-song voice face with that duper's delight. 22, 22. And I told you, my youngest son has a friend, and all these people were welcomed into my house. All these children I fed. Very rarely did my child go to their house. They were always at my house eating and playing their video games. And it was a very pure scene, I'll say that too, because they weren't allowed to play certain games at my home. I didn't allow for certain things to go on. And they were all good to me until a certain point. But anyway, my son had told me, so-and-so, when his mother took him to church, they called him the Antichrist, and his mom died of cancer. I also told you the Antichrist would not have a mother. That's very integral to this. This person is going to hate women, okay? And their affection is going to be unnatural. That's why you're seeing all these people now, even if they're not, they're saying they're part of the rainbow community because they don't want to be persecuted. They want to be safe, okay? This is why they use this number 22. Oh, and his house number. He has 2 house numbers, but one of them is 22. 222, 2222, whatever. Who is a liar other than he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This one is the Antichrist who denies the Father and the Son. His number is 22, 2222, 222, sorry. 666 is for him, the actual being, and I think 222 are for those around him. That's my guess right now, my interpretation right now. So we see 22 mummies are moved in a glittering display in Cairo in 2021. They want everybody to stay at home and stay safe because they're off doing these bunk rituals. I almost cussed. I'm so sorry. I've pretty much stopped that too. Yay, little praise for me. Thanks be to God and His grace. So they did this. Riding on top of custom-made vehicles, the mummies were moved in a procession on Saturday from a museum where they had been kept for more than a century. Why would you move them? Why are they being moved? And why are they being moved at the climax, basically, of an alleged infectious epidemic? I'm not a doctor. No part of this is medical advice. The disclaimers are in the description. Okay? But I'm a concerned citizen doing my due diligence. It is my obligation. I am obligated as a parent as well to ask questions about what in God's name is going on. Okay? We all live in this earth, on this earth. There needs to be some common sense and common courtesy guidelines that we all follow. like the sanctity of life, right? And not wanting certain rituals done just to bring down the hammer at God. Downtown Cairo came to a near standstill Saturday night as 22 mummies were moved. Yeah, they did, a 21-gun salute, which is weird. Why not the 22 there? The country's oldest monarchs were set to land, and an invitation to tourists to return to Cairo after the So it's a grand opening of sorts for the Egyptian Civilization Museum. And wow, and they're doing it during the pandemic. These are the mummies of kings and queens who ruled during Egypt's golden age. How much more do I need to say that those who were not sealed of God have been inhabited by these beings? Why do I think this? What's another reason that I think this? Well, let's show you what someone else has been doing. My grandma would roll over in her grave if I did something like this. But let me just show you. Because again, I believe all this information came to me to correlate it and show it to others. The Church of Latter-day Saints. Now again, I'm not recriminating their flock. I wish that we all had a universal church still, the Catholic Church. And yes, I wish that all of the weeds and the tares could be taken out of every church everywhere. And I wish that places that are clearly not consecrated ground churches would just start calling themselves motivational speech centers or gymnasiums for adults, because they're not churches. The LDS Church has some reverence for the Lord. But they had the polygamy thing, and that's always a sign of fallen angel interference every time you see that. The same thing happened with John Dee and his friend. They were doing fine, and then the Enochian magic came into play, and before you know it, they're being told to wife swap. Now, the LDS Church, what they'll do basically is that if you want to, if one of your one of your deceased relatives, okay, was not baptized, you can be a proxy for them. And this word is used a lot, and that's why I try to, it's being used a lot for a reason. We have proxies walking around out there right now for the Antichrist. They're his proxies, just like Slender Man had proxies. Everybody's been demon worshiping, basically, and ancestor worshiping. And what do you think's going to happen when you summon these things? Even in the Bible, she summoned somebody out of his sleep. And he's like, leave me alone. What are you doing? Well, that was before salvation came anyway, but still. So they make an offer, basically. They say, since the dead are not actually dead, they're still alive. They're just on the other side of the veil. You're making them the invitation to now be saved after death, okay? And you get baptized in their place. What's the problem with this? The problem I see is a couple different ways. Number one, it's a form of ancestor worship in a strange way. Number two, you don't know if they're consenting to this, and you're using their name. This is why I actually think Meghan Markle was very smart for copywriting Lilibet's name. That girl can have her own story now. She won't be a pattern for anyone else, and her pattern, she's not following anyone else's pattern. And I know that sounds weird to people, but if you follow this channel and you understand computer coding even a little bit, you understand that there are patterns that play out here, and names are keys for like binding people. So you have to be very careful with how you use them. And this is why the fallen ones have so many different names assigned to the same being, is because you can bind them with those names. Now, if you baptize yourself as a proxy in somebody else's name, I don't know if you're saying the last name. I don't know exactly how that part of things work, but I can tell you this. You're baptizing yourself into death, basically. And you're allowing somebody else the ability to come into your body. That's basically, you're making yourself a Ouija board. Like, you turn into the planchette. You turn into the Ouija board. I have a background in the occult a little bit. I know what I'm talking about. And I just wish people would listen. So if you combine this with all the Egyptian worship and the rituals that people like Beyonce do on stage, What do you think is going to happen? Now we have people walking around saying that they're men in a woman's body. They probably legitimately are at this point. They're probably not that same person anymore. That's probably why their physical appearance changes so much too, is because it's not that same spirit inhabiting that body anymore. And there are things that have gotten loose out of the national parks that I'm not even going to address that topic in this video, but that's all related too. We're told that the beast will come from the fields. Adam named all the animals. When you name something, you're showing that that is under your authority. It's under your domain. This is why I don't vote and I don't encourage others to vote. Because number one, it doesn't matter anyways. But number two, it's binding you to that person and or that name and whatever decisions are under that name for the next 4 years. So if he goes and commits genocide somewhere, or she, you're agreeing with that. God can say, why did you sign off on this? And you'll say, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't sign off on anything like this. Well, yeah, you did right here on this day when you voted. And I think it hinders you. All these oaths and things we've taken, it's like daring God. It's tempting God. We're told specifically not to take oaths. I even wonder about the marriage oath now in certain ways, right? Like, I'm pretty sure Adam and Eve didn't have any papers. Over-documenting things has become a big problem for us too. Okay, so now if you get to the current eclipse, the path of totality changes daily. It fluctuates from what I understand. Now, I don't know if it'll still take me there. Let me see if I can show you guys. Hold, please, while we wait on the... Alright. I wanted to show you, there is an interactive map. I think I showed you in like the last video, but it fluctuates, right? The outside. I didn't think I was going to be in the path of totality, but I am now. Which, whatever. Like, my life is so bizarre at this point. Can you show me the interactive doohickey? No. I want the one that moves. Anyways, you can basically see where it's headed. Now, Nineveh is right down here somewhere. And that's where Jonah, I don't know if you could even see that. It's basically in the middle, Nineveh, okay? And that's where Jonah went to tell everybody, repent, repent, what I've been doing for the last 5 years. I've literally sweated, I've bled, and I've been abused for my testimony. Those videos are back there. I'm not going to recriminate my husband anymore. It's not him that did it. It's the spirit behind these things. But he did. These people knew what was coming, and he did sign on to it. I saw a lot of things in the personal computer when I was like, holy cow, my whole family is hiding things from me. What is happening? And any other woman knows this to be true. You know that you know your husband. You know that you know your children. You know that if they change, you're gonna see that. And I'm just not going to be gaslit anymore about it. They've invented these syndromes, capybara syndrome. You know, oh, you had a traumatic event, so you don't recognize anyone and you've disassociated. No, the traumatic event happened because I was digging around in places I shouldn't have been and because I went to church. And I was told that. I know that. Okay, so Nineveh is basically kind of in the middle. So what do you have happening at the same time as this? You have a solar maximum, which will drop or decrease the magnetic shield of the Earth, okay? What else is happening, guys? Because some of it's starting to get confused at this point. You have the eclipse, you have spring solstice, which basically just happened. We are still in the Resurrection Day season, Passover season, and this is passing over. America, do you have the blood of the Lamb on you? Are you covered like they were in the Old Testament? Are you covered? Okay. I think they're going to have a fake resurrection too, and I think it's going to be all the people, some of them who flash that peace sign. The peace sign means victory for the Antichrist. It also means you're in the rainbow community. And you've got two faces. You're lying about it. I know this because my loved ones do this. And I heard another YouTuber recently saying, what's wrong with the beast's Chris? What's wrong with Chris being who he wants to be? And he just wants to be happy, man. Did you never ever for once think that woman spent her whole life building a life with that man, and they had a child together? Well, he just wants to be happy. Tell me again that we should let each other live and let live. Our behaviors affect everyone. It affects those we love, and then that affects those around them, and so on and so forth. We have to call people out on their behaviors, but in a loving way. You're hurting people that love you. It's fine if you want to live a genuine life. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have obligations and responsibilities that you should attend to. And I honestly don't know how to end this video, because I need to do a personal video discussing certain things to my children, like just to them. And I don't know where to go with that at this moment, because I see traces of my oldest child, but things are not as they seem. Nothing is as it seems. And we are under judgment. That's why we have the gender confusion happening. That is part of judgment. Letting these people become possessed by these beastly desires is part of the judgment. And you're going to see people degrade really quickly around you at this point if they have not repented. And I'm sorry to be the one to deliver that news, but it's going to happen. And you don't fight this physically. No, I cannot express that enough. You pray. You say no with your consent, with your voice, with your free will. You resist peacefully, but you stand on truth. And the truth is these people have known they were doing this for a very long time. Musk, all that stuff. I couldn't understand why people in my household were so obsessed with him, and he was in like every email search history that we had on our family Gmail accounts. This was all planned. And the people we see on the screens, they're very likely proxies. They're not the actual elites. Do you really think the elites are going to come out and show you what they actually look like, so that when this time comes, they can easily hide? Please remember that and think about it. Now, as always, there are more things to go over, but go do your own research. All of these things are not happening for no reason. It's not all coincidence. It doesn't all boil down to, oh, you're crazy. Like, we're over that now. You're lost, man. If that's all you can do is point at other people and say, you're crazy, you're a liar, come on. I know you can do better than that. I know that you can. Use your words. Use your mind. We're going to have some real life Nebuchadnezzars on our hand. And if you can't tell that just by looking at the head of our nation, there's something wrong, man. When all people want to do is talk about what's in their pants, there's something wrong. And our children are being exposed to this now. This is why certain things are only for private discussion. It is an abomination to look at as a child as a sensual object. It's an abomination. Abomination, abomination, abomination. I'll say it over and over. It's an abomination, and it is a shame. And you have a millstone around your neck, and I know somebody who has at least 3 around his neck. You'd think at this point you want to start taking them off. Quit blocking their way to Christ as well. I'm sick of being blocked every time I'm trying to express the gospel to my sons. I know you. I know what you're doing. I see you. And that's why I get so much grief. And the rest of you, please open your eyes. Our friends and our loved ones and our family who don't know Christ have been handed over. Most of them. There are some still in the middle, but I don't know how long that's going to last. You can see it every day with how binary and extreme things have gotten, either one side or the other. And the only thing that's going to do is unbalance humanity as a whole. And it's going to cause a chasm, a schism in more than just the church, in us, inside of each of us, with each other. The dream that I had in 2017, 2018, where first I was being accosted, but then I was raised up above the house. I went through the roof. I was still in my recliner, kind of strapped to it. I wasn't going to fall out, but I saw the ground open up. Now, that could just be a symbolic thing for my family, because after that, we did have a chasm in the family, and the house was divided. But we are a nation divided. We are a people divided. We are a church divided. We are families divided. Now is a time for forgiveness and reconciliation, if it can be done, and for reflection. It is not a time for more partying. I mean, isn't everybody sick of that at this point? It is not a time for more going to the malls and kicking it with your girls or your guys, or you don't even do that anymore, right? You sit at home and kick it and smoke and play games or whatever you do. It's not going to fill you up. It's not going to satisfy you. You will be eternally hungry and thirsty, like the Nephilim are cursed to be. And as sorry as I feel for them, I don't think they can repent. The more I read up on these things, the more it just seems like we're not even supposed to pray for that or ask for that. If you'd like to join me, I do a 7 Sorrows Rosary every day. I pick the 7 sorrows as a time of reflection and repentance, and I've been doing it almost every day for over a year now. I miss days. I've been sick, and my body is exhausted with all this mental strain and stress for simply everybody, and my family especially. Now, I've already been advised, basically, of what was going to happen. I haven't tried to avoid it. I haven't left. I haven't ran. I haven't done anything like that because that's not what Christ did, basically. That's pretty much what it boils down to. But hopefully it'll be like Nineveh, and enough people will have repented and nothing will happen. But I don't think that's going to happen. So I want to show you just a couple quick phrases. I believe this is what started to happen to me in 2017, and this is why I said my life flashed before my eyes, but it's been happening for 6 years now. This is a prophecy. It is a Catholic prophecy, okay, from many years ago, stating that this illumination of conscience would overcome humanity, and you would see yourself reflected as you really are. And all I can say for myself is I was filthy and gross, and God must be a father because he loves me anyway. And he's helped to greatly clean me up. And he can do the same for you. You got to start with your mouths and your eyes and your ears. Quit talking certain ways, quit listening, and quit watching certain people and certain things, because it passes it around to the public consciousness. Everything you do affects the person that comes after you. Everything. I don't believe this will be a one-time event. At least I don't. It's already happened for me. I've seen it's starting to happen with a couple other people. I seem to be a couple years ahead. God told me to witness. That's what I do. It's one word. I said, God, who am I today? And God said, witness. And so that's who I am. That's what I am. That's what I do. And then you have this prophecy. And yes, they're Catholic prophecies, but they seem very fitting. It's an eschatological, meaning end of days concept regarding future events held by some Catholic circles to be true. They don't tell you you have to believe it or not believe it. It's just information for you. All of these things happened at the time of Christ's passing. When he was crucified, there was a great earthquake. The sun was covered with a sackcloth. Everything went dark for the 3 days that he journeyed into hell to preach the gospel to those who had died before salvation was offered. Not to the bad people. Just to like Abraham and the people who were children of God, but they were put in Abraham's bosom because there was no God was still working on his plan. God's plan is still coming to fruition. Remember, it's his will above yours. Your free will, your consent, those are great. Use them against other people when necessary. But right now, we should all be trying to follow natural law, moral ways, God's ways, whatever words you want to use that will click something, right? It's just a warning. I hope nothing happens. But I do hope that people start to look in the mirrors and that we start to treat each other better, because no matter what happens, there is something coming to America, and it's already here, and it's been here, and it was a Trojan horse. And if you don't know the story of the Trojan horse, and I wish that I had people on here who appreciated history and stuff. I get a lot of trolls. I realize if I had a better presentation, perhaps that would not occur. It is what it is. So it was a wooden horse said to have been used by the Greeks during the Trojan War to enter the city of Troy and win the war. It's not mentioned in Homer's Iliad, with the poem ending before the war is concluded, and it is only briefly mentioned in the Odyssey. So it's mentioned in 2 writings, though, right? But in the Aeneid by Virgil, after a fruitless 10-year siege, the Greeks construct a huge wooden horse at the behest of Odysseus, and hid a select force of men inside the horse. Much like those ships we saw dock in LA and New York at the beginning of CV. And there's a lot of underground tunnels they're trying to keep people out of right now. I would be asking, why is that? We got to ask the right questions. I'm going to end this because it's probably been super long. If you did like it, I'd appreciate the thumbs up, just so I know that I'm explaining this in ways that other people can understand. Because God, the universe, the maker, creator, the baker of us all, the architect, He teaches us each in different ways. And I'm trying to relate this story that was taught to me in the way that I best learn, right? Through words and pictures. I'm trying to show you in some type of chronological timeline why I believe what I believe, why I've come to the place I am, and some of the events that have packed in the last 7 years. I pray that you are blessed, that this day is blessed, and may God's peace be with you and upon you. Have a great day.